So learning target 10 says I can find the solution to a system of equations. However, that is a really big learning target because there are three ways to solve a system of equations and find a solution. There's graphing, there's substitution, and there's elimination. So in this video, we're just going to talk about graphing. So we can consider this video Learning Target 10, Part 1, Graphing. Now, in order to solve a system of equations, we first have to understand what a system of equations is. A system of equations is two equations that are solved together. So, for example, let's say you have one equation, and this is the line for that equation. This line represents all of the xy pairs that would be solutions to that equation. Now let's say you have another equation, and now this line represents all the solutions to the second equation. That place where they cross, that point represents the one point that's a solution to both equations because that is a point on the first line and it's a point on the second line. So it's a solution to both equations. So when we are presented with a system of equations, like this, for example, two equations to solve together, if we graph them, the points on the graph where the two lines cross, that point represents the one point, the one xy pair that would solve both equations. And so therefore it's a solution to the system of equations. So there's three methods: graphing, substitution, and elimination. In this video, we're just going to talk about graphing to solve these systems. It's the most visual way, and if you have a calculator, it can be the easiest way. If you don't have a calculator, depending on the problem, it could be easier to use one of these ways. Now, to use this, it's easiest to use when both equations are solved for y, or you are easily able to solve them for y, because then you can graph in slope-intercept form. You could use graphing in standard form, but you couldn't use your calculator then, because your calculator only takes equations in y equals, to start with y equals or f of x equals. But you could always graph them by hand in that case. Now, to graph these, I am going to graph the first one. So I'm going to start at a positive 2. And then my slope is 3, that's like 3 over 1. So from this point, I'm going to go up 3 over 1. And I will make my line. And just to go in the other direction, I'll go down 3 over 1 as well. Now, this equation says negative 2x plus 1. So for this one, I'm going to start at 1, and I'm going to now go negative 2 over 1 from that point. So this place right there, where there's two lines crossed, that point is going to be my xy pair. That's the solution to both. Now it's kind of difficult to tell that from this hand-drawn graph. So what we can do is we can take a calculator, open up a new document, let me make this a little bit darker so you can see it here. Going to add a graph. Let me see if I can make it. There we go. Now you can see it a little bit better there. Okay, so what we're going to do is in f1 of x, we're going to have 3x plus 2, and we'll graph that. So there's my first line right there. That was the first line that I drew here. Okay. On my, whoops. Okay, so there's my first line. My second line is negative 2x plus 1. So I'm going to hit tab, and then an f2 of x. I don't want to replace that first one. I want to add to it because the system has two equations. I'm going to say negative 2x plus 1, enter. And that point that they cross right there is the solution. Now it's really hard to tell what that solution is. It's some kind of decimal. So I'm going to go to Menu, Analyze Graph, number 6, and then I'm going to go down to number 4, Intersection. And so now it has that same vertical dotted black line. I'm going to be to the left of the intersection and click the grabby hand right there. That's kind of like a little picture of a grabby hand. Then I'm going to scroll over to the right of the intersection, hit the grabby hand again, and it says that the intersection happens at negative 0.2, 1.4. So the solution to this is when x is negative 0.2 and y is 1.4. That xy pair would solve both equations. Now let's try this one. So I will go back up here. I'm going to delete what I have for my F2 so I can start over. Scroll up again. I'll delete what I have for my F1. And now I can re-put in a new F1. So my first equation is negative x plus 4. So I'm going to hit negative. The negative is right here. Negative x plus 4. Enter. There's my first equation. It looks something like that. My second equation is, this one isn't solved for y equals, so I need to make it so that it is. I need to get the y all by itself, so I have to add 2 to both sides. So y equals x plus 2. So now that it's y equals, now I can put it into my graph. So I'll hit tab to get that bar back up there. And it says x plus 2, enter, and it looks like that. That point right there, it appears that it's at 1, 3, but I'm just going to double check here. I'll go to Menu, just to make sure it's not a little bit off of that point. Intersection, go to the left, hit enter, scroll to the right, and it is. It intersects at 1, 3. So that point right there is 1, 3. And I could write my answer like this, or I could write it like that. When x is 1 and y is 3, that is an xy pair that would make both of those equations true. And that is how you solve a system of equations by graphing.